The West Sacramento Flood Control Agency is now in session. The first order of business would be from our attorney, Mr. Jim Day, in reference to our closed session that we had this morning.
The board did meet in closed session this morning on the item on the closed session meeting agenda to confer with legal counsel, and no action was taken.
Thank you, Jim. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda. I need a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Public comments on matters not on the agenda. Item number 3, approval of minutes for 2013, May the 9th.
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the May the 19th, 2013 minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it. Review of the monthly year-to-date revenue and expenses.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This cash flow report summarizes the receipts and expenditures for the month of April 2013. For the month of April, there was no revenue received or other payments booked. Expenditures for the month of April came in at approximately $658,000. The majority of the expenditures were related to the Southport Design Project at approximately $522,000. The other expenditures included work on the GRR, real estate, and project closeout work for the CHP and Rivers and I Street projects. With April's expenditures, the year-to-date expenditures are at $8.4 million, of which 5.2 is expended on the Southport project. That's about 62% of all agencies' expenditures. At the end of the month, the cash position was $6.55 million. Staff is currently finalizing a true-up statement with DWR that should bring some more revenues onto the books, and with the May report, you'll see the second tax assessment payment received. That concludes the monthly cash flow report.
Questions?
Yeah, that second payment for tax comes in when?
It'll show up on the books on the May report. So it's been received physically, but we haven't reported on it until next meeting.
Till July.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark, one question on the regional flood management plan work order where we have stuff charged. Refresh my memory on how we are reimbursed for that, or?
Yeah. Off the top of my head, it's a $1.5 million grant. The charges or costs to apply for the grant were split equally between WSAFCA and SAFCA, and then this came in to about $84,000 plus some staff time. Going forward from March 2013 on a quarterly basis.
Get reimbursements?
Exactly.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Welcome.
We're down to consent agenda, item number 5. Any comments?
No. I move for
Make a motion
approval of
to-
the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded that the consent agenda be approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Regular agenda, presentation of the 200-year flood hazard information maps by California Department of Water Resources.
Chairman Dimon, it's my privilege to introduce to you Paul Marshall from the Department of Water Resources. He's the Assistant Division Chief. He's been an active participant in our Regional Flood Management Program, and he's here to provide you with a short presentation on an implementing bill from Lois Walk, SB 1278.
for the Division of Flood Management, California Department of Water Resources. I am here to tell you about the SB 1278 mapping that is required of us. But the reason I'm here is because the SB 1278 mapping is coming out. It's required by July 2nd. And we wanted to get out to the cities and counties that would be receiving these maps and let them know, first of all, what they would be seeing. We didn't want the boards and councils to be unaware of what kind of images they would be seeing in these maps. We wanted them to have a knowledge of what kind of assumptions went into the mapping so that they could be able to answer questions and possibly use this as an opportunity to reach out to members of their public. So we started the process a couple of months ago talking with staff, telling them about what was in the mapping assumptions, and we offered to bring that information further into the elected officials and so forth throughout the city. So why SB 1278 mapping? Legislature, first of all, requires DWR to do it, and as good staff for legislature, we're going to meet those requirements. Legislature requires us to do this by July 2nd, 2013. But legislature also was doing this, was requiring it of us because of local demand. Last year, while they were developing 1278, they got a lot of comments from locals saying that they didn't have a knowledge of the 200-year floodplain in their particular area, and they didn't have the funds available to do it. So legislature required it of us for all areas, municipal areas within the state plan of flood control or project levies. Legislature also wanted you guys to have these maps so that cities could make general plan amendments. They also wanted to be able to make the general public aware of what kind of potential flooding there was throughout the Central Valley. And they also didn't want to have any more delays. So they really wanted the timing to kind of finish up here, get these maps out, no more excuses. Let's move forward with public safety and flood protection. There might be a couple of local reasons for individual cities throughout the Central Valley as well. In some cases, these maps might corroborate some of the previous floodplain mapping. Up in Woodland, the folks up there just finished 200-year mapping, and they're very interested to see what our assumptions show them in mapping. Across the river over in Sacramento, they've done some 200-year mapping as well, and they're very interested to see how these maps might differ from theirs as well. There might be some incentives as well, and let me get into that a little later on. But one of the things that is coming up right now, instead of just seeing these as maps that show a lot of flooding or potential flooding, there might be a chance to actually highlight some of the recent work and the plans that have been done by WSAFCA, the City of West Sacramento, and a number of other agencies throughout the Central Valley. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that you understood is that these are not FEMA regulatory maps. In fact, these are not regulatory maps at all. These are informational maps that are really being done for the communities that are out there for the reasons that we've already stated. FEMA is not looking at these maps as part of their own. FEMA does not work with 200-year maps. They only work with the 100 and 500-year maps. These are done with different assumptions than what FEMA has done in the past. So they're not ready to really look at these things as any kind of work that they would have done. So the map that you see up here right now is the current FEMA map that is out there on the website. But SB 1278 mapping is 200-year maps for all of these 10 cities that you see up here on the board. And this mapping is very, very conservative. Let's start with hydrology. It's 200-year hydrology. This is hydrology that has been developed by the U.S. Corps of Engineers. They just finished with it a couple of months ago. It's been reviewed internally at the Corps and through an external review panel, and a number of other public or actually private groups have looked at the hydrology as well. We at the department consider the Corps to be the hydrology experts for the state, and that's why we contracted with them to put this hydrology together. Flow routing. So once you have hydrology, all the rainfall and so forth, how do you route it through the system down to a study area? In our flow routing, we're doing something that has never really been done before. In the past, we've allowed breaks in levees and so forth upstream of study areas. In this particular case, we're not allowing those breaks anymore. Even if it's showing water actively flowing over a levee, in the model we're saying that levee holds. It does not break. Okay, so it's a very conservative model, and we're taking all of the flow down to the study area. Not existing conditions either. One of the things that this particular modeling does is, instead of looking at the existing levee heights and existing levee constructions, it's assuming that all of those rural levees upstream of you are reconfigured to the former 55 and 57 levee profiles. In many cases, the levee does not meet those profiles, and we're assuming that everything's been rebuilt up above you back to that. It also assumes that the urban areas around you are built up to the 200-year profile. So it would assume, in this particular case, that the city of Sacramento across the way has been built up to the 200-year profile, and that their levees hold, and yet your levees break. So the last thing here is that SB 1278 requires us to break levees. Regardless of whether or not a levee has been certified to the 200-year standard, we're still required to break those levees at some point to show flooding behind this. So essentially, what it's telling us to do is showing risk. It's trying to tell us to put out a map of potential risk. Not full risk, it's not a real risk map, because it's telling us to actually break these 200-year levees. But it is trying to say that the people behind these levees, the facilities, everything behind these levees are at potential risk, and that's what it's trying to do for us. So here is an actual draft of the map that will be coming out to you on July 2nd. The SB 1278 map will probably show much of the urban areas in the valley floor to indicate some potential inundation, okay? It'll show that throughout a lot of the valley floor. It'll also show you some estimated water surface elevations. It's hard to see from this particular perspective, but there are some little black lines on here that that show you potential water surface elevations on here. We're also going to be giving you a book that basically translates all of that into water depth. for the individual cities that we're going to be handing them out to. Now, this basically exemplifies the gravity of a 200-year flood event, coupled with a bunch of breaches. So it basically serves more or less as a warning, and it will not be showing any local flooding sources, and it will not be showing any flooding sources for facilities that break or facilities that could break that are not state plan of flood control or project levees. So we assume that those non-project levees hold during a flooding event, and so this is not going to show that kind of stuff. Now, one of the things that might happen is that the people living behind these levees might feel an incentive to purchase flood insurance or participate in some of the WSAFCA type activities that are going out there on a regular basis. They might show some additional support for certain types of things, and they may even take some actions to look at how they might be able to evacuate from an area should a flood occur in their particular neighborhood. But this is a messaging opportunity for WSAFCA and the city. You've had a number of past projects that I just heard listed off, which is great. And there are a number of present efforts that are going on and a lot of future efforts that WSAFCA has been participating in. And I'd like to just point a couple of those things out. The levee improvements near the CHP Academy, the levee improvements near Bright Park, near I Street Bridge, and the proposed improvements down in Southport. These are all projects that really get at the 200-year protection that West Sacramento really needs. West Sacramento has also been participating in the general reevaluation report by the Corps of Engineers that is supposedly going to be published by the end of this year. They've been, that particular report is coming out with some options that will really start working at that 200-year protection for the city. WSAFCA and City of West Sacramento has been participating in our urban level of flood protection criteria working group. We really appreciate having them work with us on this. It is a important part of being able to implement safe flood protection for the city. And Mr. Dirksen and Greg Fabian have been working very actively on the regional flood planning for the lower Sacramento and Delta North region. This is a locally led flood planning effort, and West Sacramento is the leader for that particular program. This is going to be used to seek new federal and state funding. This information is going to be used to seek new funding. It will be informing what we call our basin-wide feasibility studies, and it will be informed by all of that information that we've been pulling together over the last several years with Prop 1E money to get good information for improvements of the system. The other thing that that is protecting the city of West Sacramento is the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan. So while regional planning is the regional priorities, these are the state priorities, and it gets us a little bit further down the road. And so these are the things that we can message as people start questioning the maps that will be published on July 2nd. At this point, I'm done with the presentation. I was wondering if you had any questions of me on anything that I've presented or any of the activities that we have going on at the department.
I guess the only question I would have is as you have gone through and you're going to go make your presentations to the various folks. A number of those communities have taken a very proactive approach to flood protection, especially West Sacramento. You know, we have a sales tax override that was passed. We have the voters voted to tax themselves additional monies for flood protection. And we also have development fees that are in place. And it just seems like there's an effort, or have you at least looked at, by presenting the information the way you're doing, you're raising people's anxieties? Because, you know, right now, the folks out there think that, especially in June, July, and August, we're pretty safe from floods. You know, they feel pretty comfortable. And are you raising the anxieties of those folks for when it does get into the flood season and, you know, they don't see any work or anything going on with their levees?
I don't believe that it was the intent of legislature to raise the anxieties of the people of California, but I think it was their intent to raise their awareness. It's one of those things where because this modeling doesn't really show the true risk of any particular piece of property in an area. It doesn't compare your levees that much differently than the levees of Stockton or Merced or something like that. In fact, this tells only just a part of the story. For instance, in the city of Merced, they only have a very small section of project levees, and the flood mapping that we're doing for them really just fails that one little section. They're just as much or more so at risk of a lot of non-project levees that we're not even touching, and we're not even showing what the potential flooding could be from those. So it really kind of is a very disjoint message in a lot of ways. But it's an opportunity to start raising awareness of those things that the state is more or less responsible for, those project levies, and what the potential is behind them. And I think that that's what the legislature was really after. If there is anxiety, and there could be, you know, with these things being published in, you know, potentially being published in the paper or something like that,
No, it's going to be.
That's,
I mean, this is.
pardon me?
It's going to be. I mean, this is. It's news.
Yeah, it is news.
Yeah, it's news.
But there is potential for agencies like WSAFCA to be able to say, we agree that there is potential, there is flooding potential in West Sacramento. However, that is the reason why we have been doing all of these things and have been making all of this progress towards a flood-safe community. And I think that it's a good opportunity for you guys to be able to kind of turn it in the right direction and say, it's not like we're just becoming active. We have been active for quite some time and have been taking these steps to become flood-safe.
Paul, I think the term you were looking for was concocted as far as the scenario that the legislature made you look at. But just so we understand and the citizens of West Sacramento understand, when they see this map, the scenario is a 200-year event, all of those flows coming to and around the city of West Sacramento, and then there's a failure of a state project levy.
Actually, multiple failures. So
multiple failures, and then what is the duration? Are these elevations that are going to be shown assumes that basically this thing fills up at the same level as the 200 levels around us?
No, it doesn't go exactly like that. What it does is it still looks at the hydrology curve.
There is a curve,
You
okay.
know, that's associated with this. And I failed to mention that it is actually a whole series of breaks. So the way the model run is done is they route the water down to the area, and they break one section of the levee, and they map that. And then they route the water down to the area, and they break another section of the levee, and they map that. And then what you're seeing here is actually a composite of all of those model runs together, showing how the water surface elevations might seem with various different types of breaks throughout the area.
So it'll be multiple maps for
Well,
the area?
no, it's one single map, but it's a composite.
Okay.
And you, if the city wants to see any of the modeling, it's available to them, okay? In fact, we can even get you the actual model. It's a available, publicly available model out there, and we can get you the model to be able to, run things on your own as well. I believe that MBK has been looking at the model and the hydrology.
Okay, so it's one map, but it'll show you different scenarios on that map.
Yeah, all overlaid together.
Okay, okay, thanks.
So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We're down to item number 7 of the West Sacramento Area Flood Control Biannual Operate. No, we got that. No, we don't need
No.
that.
No, we don't.
Number 7.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Tish Sharma, City Budget Manager. Today, I'd like to present to you the proposed biennial budget, operations and maintenance budget for fiscal year 13-14 and 14-15. The attachment 1 actually line items are the proposed budget for next 2 years. If you see the budget, a majority of the staff working on the project, that budget is actually built in the project itself, in the work orders that you see every month, staff charges. The proposed budget, I'd like to just make a note that one of the line items in here towards the bottom of attachment 1, the under 5310 contribution to other agencies, the tree mitigation transfer out to city, the $175,000 each year. We'd like to have that item pulled from this budget. It appears that the project itself has mitigation budget already built in there, so staff will do the analysis and will evaluate that we are not double dipping on the mitigation budget. Apart from that, I'll be happy to answer any questions and would like to have the board consider approval of the budget.
No, I have no questions.
I have one,
Yes.
just to follow up on that. So what you're saying is RD 900 has tree mitigation financing attached to it. So is that why WSAFCA, you can pull 175,000 out of that?
It's actually the project itself, for example, CHP, all these projects we are doing, the work orders itself has a budget for tree mitigation in it. So we don't need an O&M budget for that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we don't want to double, the mitigation budget, so.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing.
No,
Thank you very much.
We,
I will make a motion that we approve the biennial budget as amended with the elimination of the tree mitigation.
Second it.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the biannual budget as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thanks again. This is project updates on item number 8.
Chairman Denton, members of the board, I have a few updates I'd like to provide. First and foremost, This past week, after council budget talk, City Manager Marty Tuttle met with Greg Fabian and asked that he assume the positions of the flood protection manager. Greg has agreed to that, and so our not having a flood protection manager for the last 6 months or so has been resolved. So I'm happy to report that. I'd also like to report that staff, along with agency partners, did meet with the Army Corps of Engineers this past week to talk about bring to light our concerns about schedule slipping regarding the general reevaluation report, the draft report, as well as some concerns regarding our permitting necessary to go to construction next year. They were open to listening to our concerns, and we have some action items to follow up with to try to make sure that that process becomes more fluid and meets our needs.
So are we going to get it before January then?
I don't know that we're going to get it before January.
We won't get it in February, right?
We did let them know that we can work with a January date, and we would like to see what efforts we can do mutually to make that happen. You may have seen the press release, but perhaps not. Congresswoman Doris Matsui, along with Representative Doug LaMalfa, introduced House Bill 2293 to try to reintroduce 104 crediting for federal projects, federal-related projects for local agencies for crediting. So we're hopeful that that moves forward. Again, it's just been introduced, and it will be going to the to committee in the near future. And two more things. The Regional Flood Management Plan is honing in on coming up with a problem statement that it's going to, and it will be holding a public workshop at the latter part of February, or excuse me, the latter part of July 29th. We'll be holding that across the way at the community center to at least share our findings and perhaps capture more information regarding some of the problems we see in our region with flood control facilities, both urban and rural. And lastly, Chelsea will be going on maternity leave, and so Christina Dell will be our clerk for the meetings for the near future. We wish Chelsea well, and that concludes my progress report for today.
Very good. Informational items.
I don't have anything to add.
Nothing left. Meeting's adjourned.